Hey guys, Professor Benson here. I am just checking to see, or we're going to go ahead and I'm going to show you how to build this Tableau financial complaints dashboard. We're going to do, I've based it on this Abhishek Agrawal one. His video here is 1 hour and 45 minutes, and that's a little bit long. And he's got some things that are more like this complaints by issue and this complaints by media are more complicated than I think they need to be. And then these little charts underneath, these little mini charts. So it's a little more complicated. So we're going to make a more simplified version of this, but I want to be able to, but we'll go ahead and walk through this. Now we'll go ahead and get started. We'll go ahead and get started with this. So I've opened up Tableau Public, and we're going to go ahead and open, this is actually a text file, which is going to include these comma separated values, these CSV files. So if I try and open this with Excel, and this data is called the real world fake data, it's a kind of a famous data set out there. And so if I go ahead and watch, if I click it here, it's this financial consumer complaints. It's going to throw an error here that says an error occurred while communicating with Excel. So if you get this error, you know that's what it is. And so what we'll do is I'm just going to X out of it. And what we're going to do is import it as a text file. And now when we do it, it's going to open up and it should just read it just fine. And these are financial complaints. I think these are all real complaints. Well, this is real world fake data, but this is like data that would go to the Better Business Bureau or the Consumer Financial Complaints Bureau. And so we've got data here. And so what I want to do is I'm going to start building probably all this complaints by issue. Actually, I'm going to do complaints by media, complaints by product, percentage disputed, and then this complaints by issue and the map. And then we'll go to these big numbers, these big KPIs up here. And then this is a header. Okay. And so we'll go ahead. I'll put a link to his video here if you like it. And you can download the data link here. But we're going to do a simplified version of this. So I'm going to go ahead and go here. So we're going to do this complaints by media and complaints by product. And then the complaints by issue, and we'll do top 10. And you notice here, let me see if I can make this a little bigger with this screenshot. What they've done is to kind of make it pop a little bit. They've got this by issue, by media, by product, by states. Like that part is bolded, and then this part that's in complaints is not. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and he's got some fancier charts where he's combined two charts and made one this line. It takes a long time, and it looks cool, but I just want this to be a more simple dashboard. So with that, let's go ahead and I'm going to go here. We'll go to our first sheet and we'll do these. Let's do the complaints by media, which is the submission channel. So if I say submitted via, I'm just going to double click on it. And if I wanted this as a table, I would just drag this count up here and it would just tell me, most of these were 22,000 of these, or 38,000 of these came through the web, as we would kind of expect. And then if I go over here to show me, it's going to say, hey, we've got this, we could do this as a chart. And so watch what happens up here when I click that, right? So it puts the count up here on columns and this submitted via here on rows. And then I'm going to go ahead and sort these so that web is at the top. And then I'm going to go ahead and add this show mark labels so that we've got the number right here. And then we will call this is, what is it called? It's complaints by media. So I'm going to go ahead and double click up here and I'm going to type it as complaints. I think he uses all caps. So I'm going to say complaints by media. And let's go ahead and do, how do we want to do this? Let's just do regular. Let's just see this. And then I'm going to do by media bold. And then I'm going to make this one bigger and hit apply. And so the nice thing here is by putting it here, or by doing it this way, one thing we can do, I'm going to go ahead and name this. I'm going to call this O1 Media. Whoops. And now because I've got my caps lock on, it stayed down here. One nice thing is I can duplicate this kind of like another worksheet, and then we're just going to change it to be, we'll do this complaints by product, and then we'll do this complaints by issue, and we'll just do the top 10. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and right click down here and say duplicate. And so I'm going to call this as O2 product. And then we'll change this as complaints by product, and that way our format will be kind of the same. And then instead of taking the submitted by, we'll drag that off and we'll put, we'll go ahead and put product up here on rows. And then I'm going to go ahead again and sort this so that credit card is at the top. And I might make this just, I'm trying to find the spot here to hover so that we can see this full name of checking or savings account. And so you'll notice down here, the top one is credit card, and then down here I've got credit card or prepaid card. I think that's a function of the time period that they're looking at, and I'll show that in a later one. But if I were doing this more for real, I would probably want to combine or consolidate some of these different types, right? Like there's this bank account, and I might combine this checking and savings account with a bank account, for example. So now we've got two. And so for our next one, I'm just going to duplicate it so this goes fast. And we're going to call this, what is this one? Issue. So we'll do complaints by issue. Okay, and hit apply. Okay, and then we want on this, so that means we're going to take product off, and I'm going to put this issue up here, right here. And you'll notice there's a ton of them. I'm going to go ahead and sort them so that managing account, we can make this a little bit wider. And then what we'll do is if we want the top 10, it's a weird, to me, it's a not intuitive way, but this is the way Tableau does it, which is we're going to add it up here as a filter. So I'm going to take that same issue and bring it up here as a filter to this filter mark. Okay. And then there's a wildcard, there's a condition, which is I can put some, if it's between this field and that, like a number between a numeric value or something. We want this top, and we're going to do by top 10. And this is doing by account. Now we only have counts because these are kind of text fields or categories. But if you had numeric data, or if you wanted to say, look, by dollar amount, I could have the number of complaints or by the dollar amount of the complaint. We'll hit apply. Okay. And then we'll go ahead and make this, right? So I've got this like identity theft, fraud, and embezzlement down here, problem with a purchase shown on your statement. And I don't know what this means, but managing an account. Okay, so this is our top. Okay, so now what we want to do is add the pie chart, which is right here. Notice he's got this, we'll probably end up changing our color to be kind of a consistent blue like this. This donut chart here, it's a complicated thing because he's got a pie chart on the outside actually, and then what he's got is this white circle in the middle. And I don't want to end up doing that on this, so we're just going to make a regular bare bones pie chart, and he's got the number and then this percentage of the total in, I don't know if you can see that, but it's in parentheses kind of below it. So we've got percentage of consumers disputed, percent consumer disputed, and then it's a yes, no, not applicable, like they didn't answer or no answer. And so let me just show you how we'll do that. So and the reason I know that is let's add a new sheet. And if I just look at this consumer disputed, right, and then add the numbers up here, I can see that, most of these are not disputed, but over half are, or about half are, there's no answer. But if I go ahead now, I've got this here. And if I now just click on the pie chart, it will have made a pie chart. Now your color will be different because I was just working on this. And so the way I did the color here is the Tableau default. So if I do this automatic, or if I do this Tableau, default, it'll end up doing a different color. But I ended up doing this blue right here. Okay. And then I selected NA to be this first one. I kind of start going down. So these are kind of different palettes, and these are actually different colors, but like this blue isn't the same as that one, believe it or not. They're close, but they're not quite the same. So I'm going to pick this no to be like this one here. And then the yes, I typically try and do, in fact, this no here in the middle, maybe I'll give it a little more. And then yes, I go here. I usually try and do two apart. So I wish it gave us a fifth color, and I'll hit apply. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and make this, so that creates the pie chart. We're going to now fix the size right here by dragging it, and if I go all the way to this notch, sometimes this part, like if I go a little too far, you'll see it starts and we have to kind of fit it entire view. And I'm just going to go ahead and make this a little bit smaller. Okay, so I want to put the number and then the percentage underneath it. And the way I'm going to do that is put it here as a label. So I'm going to go put the count up here on the label. So it's put the numbers. And in order to see the legend, we'll end up having to put that below it, but we'll put this, in fact, we might, I don't want to do, let's go ahead and put, but this is our legend over here so that we can see the NAs, the no's, and the yeses. And then to do the percentage, I'm going to drag it again, or I'm going to go down here and make this a quick table calculation and percent of total. So now it'll do the percentages. And then I'm going to add the count up here again. So I've got the percentage above it and then the count below. And then I can either drag this like here and it'll swap them, or I can click here on the label and I can copy and paste. Like if I move this one below it, it goes around. Okay, but I don't want to end up doing that. So let's just go ahead and put it back up here. So I want this number here. I'm going to bold it and make this, I don't know, like 16. Hit apply. And then underneath this, I'm going to put he puts this in parentheses. So the little caret signs there at the end mean that this is a field, like it's calculated. So it's going to adjust as we filter it different ways and so on. I'm adding, this is just adding text around it, adding the little parentheses. And so if I hit apply, it added them here. Okay. And then if I wanted to add the yes or the no, I could add them here. But I think for right now, because we're going to end up putting this right below it, I think we're good. And what does he call this? Percent consumer disputed. And we did, if I go back here, this was, I'm just going to copy and paste this. And then I'm going to call it percentage complaints disputed. And then I'm going to make this bold. And I misspelled disputed. Okay, and so if I do I need to get, I'm going to hit apply, but it doesn't feel like it pops quite as much with my bold and then this part not being bold. And I'm going to call this one 04, I'm going to call this one 04 pie chart. Okay, I think that's going to be pretty close. So our workflow in Tableau is typically you create all of these, you create each of these charts, and then you create all of them, and then you combine them in a dashboard, right? So I'll put a timestamp when we switch to starting on the dashboard. So we need to create this state one, and then what we'll do is he's got these as separate boxes. I might just end up putting them as one box and moving them across to kind of speed things up, but we'll worry about that when we get there. So we've got this one. We can change the color to be this more purple blue that he's got. And then let's go to these complaints by states. Now he's got, this is called a hex map, and you can download this. This is a little more complicated way. People tend to like it because the states are all about the same size, and you can get Alaska and Hawaii, and it doesn't overpower things. And I'll show you that because Alaska otherwise is going to overpower it for us. So let's do the complaints by states. So I'm going to go here and add a new worksheet, and we'll call this 05 states. And then we'll do, so I'm going to go ahead and just double click on the state, and which is going to create an equal size dot for all of them. So you see Hawaii and you see Alaska up here. And then I'm going to put these numbers up here on the color. Okay, and this is the problem with the map, which is when these maps, Alaska is big, but it isn't that big. This gets distorted the closer you get up here to the poles. And so what I want to do, though, is focus here on the lower 48 states. And so the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to click this arrow, and I want to go over to this pan. So I'm clicking here, and what that's going to allow me to do is I can then zoom in. And the easiest way, if you've got a mouse that has the little trackpad, not the trackpad, the little wheel on the top that I can click up. So if I double click again, it's probably going to get a little bit too big. And if I roll my little wheel here, so this is each one click of the wheel, I can make it smaller or larger. So I'm going to probably do it about right there, one fewer, and do it about right there. Okay, and so I'm going to then go ahead and just say, so that you can't pan it anymore. So we'll just go ahead and do that. So now I've got the state. And if I wanted to add numbers to it, again, I could add a count up here to the label. Right now I've got how many, so 12,000, 5,000. In fact, let's do that. So I just added this count up here to the label so that I have a count of all of these. Okay. And then I'm going to call this, what does he call this? I think he calls this complaints by state. And then he's got this thing that says click any state to filter the dashboard. So let's go ahead and I'm going to do here. We'll go grab this. Copy this. Okay. And then we might end up making this, I'm going to go ahead and make this smaller and not bold. I'm going to leave it this size right now. And then what does he say? Click any state to filter the dashboard. So I'm going to say click any state to filter the dashboard. Meaning if I click on that, it's going to zoom in and all the data will be broken down by that state. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make that a 12 point and not bolded. May end up centering that. Okay, so I've got this. We can come back and change the size on this, but I've got click any state to filter the dashboard. And I like to include text like that to let the person know that if they click on that state, you're informing the viewer or the user of your dashboard that they can of functionality when you do that, right? And then so we can do this, and then we're going to go ahead and create these 5 sort of KPIs up at the top. And I'm going to put these, I believe, as we can either do this as 5 separate little dashboard, 5 different little worksheets, or we can put them as one. So on this next one, what we're going to do, let me slide over to his thing. We're going to create these 5 big numbers, the KPIs, and we're going to do them as separate. And there's a reason we're doing that, and it's because they're not just simple counts. So to get these percentages, I'm going to change because I don't like this resolved at no cost, and I don't like this in progress. So we'll go ahead and change these, but we're going to create, so each of these will actually be a new sheet, and then we'll combine them. Okay, so this first one is the total complaints, and then the next one is the timely response. So we'll head back to Tableau Public. And here we're going to do, so this one is really easy. All we're going to do is I'm going to just slide this number up here and the total complaints. And we'll go ahead. So this is that 75,000. And then we'll call this total complaints. Oh, I think he makes this like a large, he makes this all uppercase. But then he chooses like a smaller, I'm going to do Tableau regular, and I might make this a little bit smaller. He makes this a little bit smaller. And then here on the text, we'll just go ahead and make this bold, and I'll make that, I don't know, 16. So we've got this number, okay? And then for the next, so that's our total complaint. So I'm going to call this 06, I'll just call that total. Or I'll call it KPI, and this will be, I'll just call that total. Okay, and then let's go to, so for the next one was the percent that had a timely response. And so what he's got there is, for timely response, if I double click, whoops, I'm going to undo that. I've got a new sheet. If I do timely response, right, and then double click these numbers, I've got, and if I change this to a percentage, right, so if I go here to analysis, and then as a percentage of the table, So that 98.05, if I take that down to a single decimal place, that's 98.1%. And that is what he has. That's where he gets this 98.1%. Okay. And so we're actually going to create a couple of measures so that we can create this, any of these percentages. So this timely response, this disputed rate, and then this resolved at no cost. So in the next part, we're going to create, essentially what I need to do is say how many have a, well, let's create this percentage. So let's go back to Tableau Public. Okay, and so what we're going to end up doing, this is how I always kind of check these things. So let's go ahead, we're going to create a calculated field. And there's two ways we can do this. So what we're going to do is I want this to be a 1 if timely response is a yes. Let's just go ahead and look at this timely response. So if I go down, I typically go down to this describe, and it's going to say, look, this one's case sensitive, and they are a no and a yes. Okay, and then you'll notice it's saying financial consumer complaint. So that's the table name or the database name, and then dot timely response. So that's like the column or the field that we're using. Okay, so we'll go ahead, and what I'm going to do is create a field that is a 1 if this is yes. So what we'll go do here is I'm going to create, I can do it here. So I can do it and say create calculated field. So create calculated field, and I'm going to call this, I'm going to use TR for timely response. So I'm going to call this TR yes. Okay, and what it is it's just going to say if the timely response is equal to quote yes, then 1. So I want a new field that is just 1 if timely response is yes and blank otherwise. And then I always put end on the next. You always have to put an end. If you don't, it'll say calculation contains errors and it needs an end. So then we're going to hit end. Hit apply. So now I've got this timely response yes. And if I go look at it, if I go look over here, what I've got is, if I hit now my show fields and I do, I want to see timely response and then timely response yes. Right? And so if this is a yes, and then if it's no, then this is null. Okay, it's empty. Okay, and then what that allows me to do is now I'm going to create a new one called TR percentage, and I'm going to do that the second way, which is up here in this analysis. And I'm going to call it TR for timely response. I can either do the percentage sign or PCT. I'll do PCT. Okay, and all I want is what is that percent? What percent are the yeses? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to count my TR yeses. Oops, undo. Count my TR yes. And it's tried to say, hey, what do you want? And then what I want is I want to count divided by count. I'm going to just delete those. And what I want is like a count of this entire timely response field. I'll go ahead and put that in the assignment so that you've got, this is a little bit tough to read, but essentially I've got the count of yeses divided by the count of the total, right? So count here means count all the non-blank ones. So over here, it's just going to count the ones. And then over here, it's going to count it's going to ignore things for which this field is blank. Okay. And so I'm going to hit apply. So now I have TR percent and TR yes. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and clear out this sheet. And then what we want to do is I'm going to say, look, essentially what I want to do, and I want to make this a percentage. So let's go ahead and I'm dropping down default properties, number format. I'm going to make this a percentage and I'm going to do a single decimal place. And if we've done this right, it should be 98.1%. So I'm just going to go ahead and, so this is TR percent, and I'm going to rename this. This is like the percent. In fact, I'm going to call this TR yes percent. And if I show it here, I've got 98.1%. And he called this, what did he call this? Timely response. In fact, what I ought to do is I'm going to go back to this KPI and just copy it. And I'm going to just call this timely response. And I'm going to say percent. Okay. And then I'm going to make this one a little bit bigger. What did we make the last one? Okay, so we may end up having to change that just a little bit, but I think, because he wants this like almost as big as this, and that'll be bold. Okay, so then we've got what? In progress, disputed rate, and resolved at no cost. So I don't like this in progress, and let me show you why. This in progress, what we end up needing to do is go here to, so this one, so let's actually name this sheet on, I'm going to call this KPI TR. And that way it'll put them together when we go to create our dashboard. For this new one, what I want to do is, in fact, I might just copy and paste this, or copy this KPI total. I'm going to drag it to the right of it, and this one's, or drag KPI that to the left, and this one's going to be KPI, I'm going to call this progress, or I think we can say in progress. Okay, so what he wants here is, or what we're going to end up doing here is, let's call this in progress. Okay, so it's based on this company response. And then if I put these counts up here on this, you'll notice here I'm going to go ahead and make this a little bit wider. Okay, but we've got these numbers here, and this in progress is just this 283 divided by, you know, all of this. So I think this total, if I add, you know, the 75,000, it's this 283 divided by that. So I'm going to go ahead and create a number, like a measure like we did last time, to get this in progress measure. And if I do this as a percentage of total, right, this is going to be like 0.37%, but I think he shows this at, yeah, at 0.37%, but this is 283. He's got that in orange. So let's just go ahead, and this one will be easy because all we need to do is count that. So let's just go ahead and create a calculated measure. I'll end up moving this off, but we'll go ahead and create calculated field, and we'll just call this in progress. So we'll just say if consumer response is equal to quote in progress, then one end. And sometimes people do, like, they'll wrap this in a count, like they want to do it all in one thing. And I tend to just do like in progress, and then we'll call this the next one in progress. So I've got this in progress. Okay. And so now all I need to do is I'm going to take this off and take this off. And essentially all I need is to say, is to double click this. And I don't want it as a bar chart. I want it here as a label. And we want to do, let's see. Oh, so this is showing us as, I'm going to say clear table calculation. This is just that 283. So if we don't want to do that, all I'm going to do, I'm going to pull this all off. And I'm just going to say, I want a count of in progress. And so let's see if I double click that, it's got this percentage. So it's summing it, right? And I want to just clear that table calculation. So it's going to be 283. And I'm going to drag that here as a label. So I'm essentially summing it, or I could count it. It would be the same way because all it's doing is adding up ones, and there's 283 of them, right? And then he makes this. I'm going to go ahead and make this a 28-point font, and he does it kind of this orange, and I'll bold it, right? And that's there are 283 in progress. Okay. And then on this next one, what we're going to do is we want to do the disputed rate. So what percent are disputed? And then he's got this resolved at no cost, which is how often did the company not have to pay out compensation? I'm going to change this to be what percentage of consumers got relief in monetary relief. That's what we'll call it. So let's look at this disputed rate, and then we'll look at this, and then we'll look at this resolved at no cost. Okay, so now we're going to do this disputed rate, and then this resolved at no cost. right? So 9.8% of them got disputed. We're going to change the calculation on this. Okay, but let's go ahead and I'm going to create a new one called KPI disputed. Oops. Okay, and what we want, if I click on this consumer disputed and then click on the count, essentially what we want is, and then if I added these totals, so I'm going to show the column grand totals, and then I'm going to format this as a percentage of the total. So it's that 9.75% is the 9.8%. So it's these yeses divided by the total. So if I get rid of this as, it's that 7363 divided by 75,513. That's what we're trying to create. So I'm going to go ahead and clear this out. So we're going to essentially repeat this tr yes. So right, this timely response, and we're going to just call this disputed yes and then disputed yes %. And so what we're going to do is, again, create a calculated field. I'm going to call this disputed underscore yes. And this is going to be if consumer disputed is equal to, quote, yes, then 1 end. Okay, and then to get the percent total, and if we want to double check our work here, I can go ahead and say consumer disputed, and then this count, right? And then if I double click on this disputed yes, I've only got, it should be the same here, but it's only these yeses. Okay, let me go ahead and pull all that. I'm just going to hit undo and undo. So we've got this, and I'll just go ahead and pull this off. But now if I want to do this disputed yes %, so now I'm going to just say create calculated field, disputed yes PCT. And so now I'm going to do a count of this disputed yes divided by count of, where's my consumer disputed, the whole thing. So I've got the count of yeses divided by the count of the total, and hit apply, and then we'll go ahead and change this to a 1-digit percentage by going down to default properties, number format, and then I'm going to go here to percentage and make it a single decimal place. Okay, and then if I put this up there, I actually just want this here as a label, and it's that 9.8%. So we'll go ahead and I think he makes this, what size is this one? So he's just got that at 16. We may end up making that bigger, but we'll just go ahead and we'll make this 16 and bold. Okay, and then for this last one, what we're going to do, let me slide back over here, is he's got this resolved at no cost. Let me show you what he's building for that, which is, I'm going to go here and add this new one. And so if I look at this company response, right, and then these numbers, and then what I want is, I'm going to count these closed with monetary relief and then closed with relief. So I want these two, this 11,693 plus this 938 as a percentage of the total. So if I go ahead and add my totals down here at the bottom, and then if I were to change this as a percentage of the total, right, essentially want this 7.8 or this 15%, 15.5%, and this 1.2%. And we're going to go ahead and put those. So I'm going to call those, I'm assuming this closed with relief this is probably a bad assumption, but I'm assuming that's monetary relief. Okay, so I want these two together. So let's go ahead and we'll go ahead and create, I want a measure that is 1 if this is true or this is true, and then we're going to do it as a percentage of the total. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm going to create a new measure. So we'll go ahead and do analysis, create calculated field, and I'm going to call this monetary relief yes. So MR yes. And the only reason I'm saying it that as opposed to relief yes is I'm not doing this non-monetary relief. And so that's why. That's a personal preference. So I'm going to say if, and I'll make that capital, if, what is this? Company response to consumer is equal to, and I'll make this a little bit wider, is equal to closed with monetary relief. Now you have to type this in. This is like one of those things I don't like about Tableau. I had to be able to just copy this, okay? Or company, I'm going to say company response to consumer is equal to closed with relief, then 1, and I can actually kind of so it should be a 1 for this one and this one. We'll hit apply and OK. And then I'm going to do, to double check it, I can just double click on it here. And I don't want these as a percentage of total. I'm going to call these just none. But I should have 938 here and 11,693 here, right? So that means I've done it right. This should be a 1 every time this is here, and it should be a 1 every time this is here, and it should be blank for everything else. So I'm going to go ahead and grab these off. Okay, and then what I want to do is I've got this MRES, and then I want this MRES percent. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a calculated field. We'll call this MR underscore yes percent. And so it's, again, it's going to be count these MR yeses divided by the count of everything that is a consumer response. And I'm going to make that a percent. So we're going to go here, default properties, number format, percentage. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and just drag these off, right? And so this is just going to be this MRES percent, and I'm just going to grab it here as a label, and this should be 16.7%. Okay, so it was like 15.5% of one and 1.2% of the other, and this is I'm going to call this consumer got relief. Okay, we could call this monetary relief. I'm going to just call it this and hit. Okay, so this one, and then the number down here is, what does he have this as? Like 16, Tableau regular 16 bold. So I'm going to call this KPI relief. Okay, 16. Okay, so right now I'm going to stop this video here because it's getting quite long. So in this first one we've created all of our charts. Our chart, our pie chart, our map, and then our 5 kind of numbers across the top. And then what we'll do, these KPIs across the top. And then in the next video, in video 2, what we'll do is we'll pull them all together into this dashboard, and we'll create some filters as well. And so we'll pull it all together. So I'm going to go ahead and end this one here. And then in video 2, we'll build the dashboard. Thanks.